Hello everyone and welcome back. A few days ago we put out the video of the unboxing of the Beatles in Mono vinyl box set, the 2025 reissue of the 2014 originally released box set. And back then we said that we're going to look at the box set more carefully aside from what we did for the video. Check out the records in more detail, listen to all of them, and come back with some informed opinions of the quality of the product inside. Even during the unboxing of the box set that we see here, we have already discovered some issues that I showed on camera last time. Unfortunately, in the meantime, aside from going online and seeing what other people's experiences have been, when looking more closely to some of the items in the box set, I have found some pretty serious issues as well. So today I wanted to have this follow-up video where we talk a little bit more about the things that I found in the meantime and after listening to all of the records, and also I have performed a comparison between some of the records in this box set and some of the records from the 2014 box set or other mono issues of some of the albums. So after we talk a little bit about the contents of this box set and the pieces of this box set that have issues, not only for me but for some other people as well, then in the second part of the video I'm just going to refer a little bit to the comparison that I've made between the records in here and their original issues from 2014 or even other issues of the mono Beatles records. So if you're one of the people who did have some issues with your box set as well, or if you are just interested to see how these compare to other mono issues of Beatles records, stick around. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to remove some of the records in this one just to keep them on the table with me. I'm not going to keep the entire box set, it just like fills a lot of the space. And also I feel like I'm already manipulating it too much in the past week or so since I've got it. I've opened it and closed it countless times, you know, put it into the cabinet that I keep it in and pull it out again. So I'm going to try to not, you know, work out the box too much during this video. Just going to take some records out, which I'm going to lay here on the table, and their correspondents, the ones that I did comparisons with, are here already. To start off, during the previous video I had already mentioned that I was considering replacing the outer sleeves and even the inner sleeves of the records that were provided via the box set. The outer sleeves are those Japanese style resealable sleeves that are similar to what was put in the box set, the CD box set of 2009. So these ones which reseal. These ones from the 2009 CD box set to me seem like a little bit of quality. They're a little bit thicker than the ones provided in the vinyl box set. But the real problem is, and this is something that I learned the hard way with these resealable sleeves, especially when it comes to the records, the full vinyl records, is that by accident it is quite easy to get the adhesive part of those resealable sleeves stuck to a record cover, and that would almost definitely in most cases leave you with a cover that will be ripped, because when you will try to remove the adhesive part from your cover, most definitely or almost definitely you will rip out some of the surface paper from the cover itself. It happened to me. You know, there are chances in which this can, you know, be avoided. In some cases, if the cover is really glossy, maybe you will, or like the adhesive is not very strong, maybe you will be luckier. But I know a lot of horror stories. I have one myself. So I've decided, at least for these records, which are important because they were quite expensive, they are rare, they're not being produced so much. So I was thinking, yeah, let's try and eliminate that risk. With the inner sleeves, there is another story. Some of the ones, especially the white ones with poly inners, are decent, I guess. I've used such sleeves on other records, But lately, especially for the Beatles records and some records in my collection that I feel more about, like I feel they are more important, and either they are rarer or a little bit more expensive than regular records, or just better versions that I want to keep as pristine as possible, I've started to replace even the poly inners, the standard ones that are in a lot of records nowadays. And the ones that I've been replacing them with are these MoFi sleeves, the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab sleeves, original master recording, original master sleeves. They are said to be archival quality and so on. In the end, they seem to be kind of the best ones that exist out there. There are other companies that are making these. If you are able to filter through the sort of lower quality, maybe Chinese or Asian knockoffs, even the ones which are not MoFi necessarily, but are made by reputable companies, they should be quite good quality. Some people are saying that some are actually even better quality. So anyway, these are the ones that I'm using. The problem I have with these as well sometimes is the fact that they really are not full paper sleeves on the outer part of the sleeve, right? They are basically just the plastic, and then inside there is a paper sheet within the sleeve somehow, but just for sort of the back of the sleeve, so to speak. So the fact that they are not paper all around, and this plastic is kind of fine plastic, is very soft, they do tend to sometimes, depending on the outer sleeve that you are putting it on, the record cover that you are putting it in, if that's really tight, they tend to sometimes crumple inside. But still, if you're careful, most of the times you'll be able to slide the record in almost any cover with a certain degree of ease. With records that are not put in box sets, like the one that I was just showing, so they have maybe a little bit more space on a shelf or somewhere to be stored, there's also the option of leaving the sleeve, of leaving the record with the sleeve outside of the main record cover, within the outer sleeve that you're probably putting on the record. So anyway, these are the ones that I'm using. When it comes to the actual records and the sleeves that I put on them, I have these sort of crystal clear polyethylene or polypropylene sleeves. I forget now which type of plastic they are, these ones. Most are polyethylene, but I think maybe this is polypropylene. It's a little bit more, it's a bit thicker and better resistant, so to speak. And I really like these ones. These are like giving this gloss to all of the records. And I feel like they are thick enough and solid enough. And I'm trying also to stay away from the PVC sleeves that still are out there, since now it's become apparent for quite a while that they will potentially cause some hazing, and you know, the plastic and the chemicals in them sometimes tend to not evaporate, but actually even pass through the record cover and get onto the records. So I'm trying to stay away from those as much as possible. I don't really have PVC sleeves on any records, except for the Queen Greatest Hits 3, which has a PVC sort of sleeve from, you know, its original state, because it's a printed PVC sleeve which was made specifically for that record. So that one I'm keeping, but I'm trying not to keep it too close to the records themselves. Otherwise, these are the sleeves that I chose to replace my record sleeves from the box set. There is also an exception. These sleeves that I have, that I just showed on with the Beatles, are generally for a one record cover, or at least maybe a gatefold, but not with two records, like maybe Beatles for Sale. For the bigger ones, like Mono Masters and let's say the White Album, I have similar types of sleeves, only they are obviously bigger. They are for 2 and 3 records, so they will be a little bit thicker, but overall they're kind of the same quality. Now, going back to the contents of the box set and what I found, I will recap very fast what we already kind of showed in that video and what were the preliminary findings. First of all, again, I had some issues with Universal Music UK with the shipment that they organized with DHL, because they didn't give DHL all of the proper instructions and the information related to the VAT. So DHL assumed that I hadn't paid VAT, although I had, so I had to pay it twice. Thankfully, Universal Music, although they were a little bit difficult, or you know, they kind of seemed difficult at the beginning, they did come around, and you know, after I sent them a couple of emails, they did reimburse me for the VAT I paid. So there was a bad experience initially, but okay, at least they did the right thing in the end. Then the box set itself, as we were unboxing it, I already had some information from other people who had already unboxed it, which I found obviously online, that there were some issues with some of the records and some of the box sets. So I was a little bit worried when I unboxed it. And when I unboxed it, as those of you who watched the unboxing may recall, we found some dents on the run-in of the first side of Please Please Me. For me, fortunately, those did not produce any sound. The way that they are placed on the run-in, the stylus that I have, or the turntables that I have, the stylus never really falls straight on them. It falls a little bit after them, and so there is no sound issue, no skips, no jumps, no I don't know, immediate danger to the stylus necessarily, or at least on the turntable that I've tried them on, which is the SL6, the Technics SL6 that I have behind me. But then, okay, went through the other records as well, through With the Beatles, Hard Day's Night. A Hard Day's Night I was a little bit worried about because I saw Andrew from Polygram had some issues, and he said that other people had them, and so I kind of was worried a little bit that maybe I will have them as well. Thankfully, at least for me, Hard Day's Night was in perfect condition. Beatles for Sale was the same, Help was the same, Rubber Soul thankfully was the same, although I do have copies of Rubber Soul in mono. This is my favorite album, so I was really hoping it wouldn't have any issues. Revolver was the same. All of these I had looked at during the unboxing, but I looked more carefully at them afterwards, and I also listened to them end to end. There is no discernible, significant sound issue aside from the off, slight surface noise here and there. No significant crackles, definitely no pops, no clicks, no jumps, no nothing. The records look fine, so I wouldn't have expected them to have these kinds of things. But at the same time, cleaning some of them, so putting them through a spin wash, did reveal that even the slighter surface noise that appeared on some of them had gone away. So clearly they were in good condition. With Sgt. Pepper, I noticed a couple of light scratches, marks on the vinyl during the unboxing, especially on side 2 across A Day in the Life. Thankfully they produce no sound artifact, so even with the sort of physical defect that is somewhat visible, the record plays fine, which is the most important thing for me. Then Magical Mystery Tour, the record is fine, thankfully. I do have another copy of that, but I was thinking about selling it, so it's good that I would at least have one working copy. The problem that many people have stated was there for me as well. So the record was put in the box set, I'm going to use this Passmaster as an example, straight up like this in the box set, with the box set being up like this. Now, for most records this is fine, but for the Magical Mystery Tour, because it has this internal booklet, and the booklet is captured or is caught by on the spine by 3 small staples, the booklet is not as big as the whole cover, so it kind of tends to pull downwards. If you keep the record like this, the weight of the pages will slightly pull downward, and because they are not sitting at the base, because the booklet is slightly smaller than the cover, and because it's captured here, is held here by only those 3 small flimsy staples, it tends to go downwards, so kind of pull this way. So some people said that their records, the Magical Mystery Tour records, were put in the box set like this, so with the spine down, so that the weight of the booklet is sitting on the spine. Some, like myself, had the record put on like this, which means that already my book was starting to pull to this side and downwards. And surely enough, after taking the record a couple of times and actually trying to listen to the record and so on, I noticed that the booklet was already becoming a little bit detached from the small metal staple that it was held by. So yeah, that's one of the defects. I guess this one was kind of a problem with the release from 2014 as well. It's fine, it's not such a huge issue. It's too bad for the integrity of the whole product, but still it's not too bad. What is important also is that the record is in excellent condition. And now, because I went through the ones which didn't have really any important sound problems and very few physical sort of defects, I will go to the ones which did have significant problems, at least for me. So Mono Masters is, I'm going to start with this one because with the White Album I have more things to say, and unfortunately it proved to be the one with the most issues. But the Mono Masters, since I took the records out, I already was aware of the fact that a lot of people were complaining about how this was packaged and about the records being very tight inside, and their inner sleeves, which are also poly inner sleeves, but they are black poly inner sleeves on this one and on the White Album versus all of the other albums. And they had been sort of pressed or stuck almost to the vinyl, right? And I show that. You can watch the unboxing video and you'll see that for some of them you can even see the outline of the record within the sleeve. It's already like ring wear on it, which for a new one is not okay, but it's clear that they were kind of very, very tight, pushed together inside. So that was the first problem. When I took them out, there were visible scuffs all over the 3 records. I'm not sure how much I caught on camera. Some of it was caught on camera, but the way that the lighting works, I was able to see it better myself, but not able to show it on camera. If you guys want, if you're like curious, although I'm sure you've seen plenty of this online, just drop me in the comments a request, and I'll get you some very horror pictures, if you will. I saw people on the Steve Hoffman forums calling the records, or saying that the records look like a skating rink. So yeah, I can provide you more detailed photos, but there was scuffs all over the 3 records. The problem was also for me that I was worried that those scuffs will also produce sound artifacts or surface noise and such. The thing is, by the way, one more thing is that the third record, if I recall, even the corners of the sleeve were crumpled, and it's clear that they were not sitting, or they're not sitting even now to a certain extent, very comfortably in this cover. Maybe it would have been a good idea for this box set, although it's okay to do almost everything identical as in 2014, but let's say Magical Mystery Tour, a better way of keeping the booklet stuck to the spine, and maybe for some of these records which are double records or triple records like Mono Masters, maybe make the covers just a tiny bit wider. You can make the sponge foam insert that was used to kind of keep everything together a little bit thinner, and maybe make these a little bit wider so that the records fit in better. But fine, I mean, it is what it is. So this was the issue. When I play the records, thankfully, and especially after giving them a spin clean, not much surface noise, the record is actually playing quieter than the copy I have from 2014. So fine, I was okay with that. This is a rare record, right? It was produced only 2 times so far in history. The past master, so this kind of compilation of all of the leftover singles and elements that were not on the album sort of canon as of 1987-88, was only produced in a digital format, where it was basically digitally remastered, let's say, since 88-87 with the past masters in stereo until today. And in 2014, this was the first analog version of most of those songs in mono, not stereo, most of them, but still the first analog release on a single record of those songs. Or it's not a single record, it's a single, I guess it's a single release, but 3 records inside. And so 2014 was the first time it was produced. It was produced for the box set then. It was also produced in limited numbers as an individual sale. I found one of those online a few months back and bought it. For me, it was expensive, and because I didn't know this will be re-released right through this box set. And now I have this copy for the box set, but this is it. Like, you cannot find any copies older than 2014, and since 2014 to 2025 there are no reissues, so the copies are really limited still online. So it was important for me that this one was in good shape. Thankfully, at least for the sound, it is in good shape. With how the records look, not so much. Now, I'm not so much concerned of how the record looks per se, you know, you kind of have to pull it towards some lighting to actually see the scuffs properly. So fine, I'm okay with that. For me, the biggest problem is how the record, I mean, it is a problem, right? And I definitely would put this on the list of issues with the box set, but it's not such a huge problem for me. For me, a huge problem would be the sound. And here, I want to talk about the White Album. So this one was another one where they had used those black inner sleeves, like they did for Mono Masters. When I unboxed this, I didn't really notice that the sort of records had scuffs on them. So initially they seemed to be fine. They had those black inner sleeves. They were a little bit tight, but not as tight as Mono Masters for sure. The fact that this cover was a little bit more sort of rounded and a little bit bulkier, it allowed for these records to stay a little bit better inside. But of course, these covers for the White Album also contain extra materials. They have the 4 pictures, they have the poster, and so there was some extra stuff inside. When I looked at the records initially during the unboxing, nothing seemed off. But when I looked at them closer later on, the next day, both of them had scuffs on both sides, exactly like the Mono Masters one. Because I had already tested the Mono Masters the day before when I did the unboxing, I was not super worried. I put them on the turntable, and unfortunately, they not only produce surface noise, but in the beginning of record 1, side 1, and record 2, side 2, you have, you know, significant crackles that are being heard. Like this record would be from 1960 or 1968. So there were some pops here and there, especially at the beginning of Back to the USSR, because Back in the USSR, because that song starts with a fade in. So there are significant crackles and pops during that fade in, and then of course the song is significantly loud, so then you hear less of that during the playthrough. But when it reaches the end and it starts to fade out and fade into Dear Prudence, again, you can hear those sounds. So for me, that is not okay. Obviously, this is happening across the record, all of it. And the second side and the second record as well, when you go into Birthday, again, the same thing. So this is problematic for me. I mean, releasing a record with these kinds of issues on it is not okay. And then obviously I started to look online again and found a lot of people had the same issues, especially with these records. It actually transpired after a while, and people were talking, that the culprit for these issues, at least for Mono Masters and for the White Album, might be those inner sleeves. Although poly inner, the black sleeves apparently are not as good quality as the white ones, even though they look a little bit slicker. And they're actually seemingly the ones that are causing these scuffs to happen. And this was reported by many other people, and people were actually even testing, like taking those sleeves, taking another record that they didn't care about that much, but it was clean, and they put it in, and when they just took it out once or twice, it already was heavily scuffed. So clearly those were the culprits, but also keeping these very tight in the sleeves, especially for Mono Masters, might have been a problem. The White Album specifically, there were other issues reported. As one of them, the most common one, was related to the flipbacks, which to some people, they were coming undone, they were not glued properly. For me, they seem to be glued. They do have near the ends, especially on the bottom side, a little bit of distance is seen between the flipback and the cover itself. It's not completely unglued, but it's not glued tight, right? So that might be an issue for me as well. I will look into it. I saw a lot of people were exchanging, advice regarding what type of glue or adhesive to use to put these back. I will research that as well, but I'm not super, focused on that right now. You know, we have bigger problems with this box from my perspective. At least for me, there are bigger problems, which, goes back to how these records are sounding. So then this one I will leave at the end. I anyway don't plan on opening this too much, right? And kind of playing with the flip backs too much. Even if I would, if I'm listening to the record, I'm kind of just opening it a little bit like this, and then I'm pulling the record out like this. And, it comes out quite easily now with this inner sleeve that I use with the MoFi sleeve. So, I'm kind of not planning on just manipulating this cover too much so that those are coming undone. I do understand people, especially the ones which are having them like almost coming undone already, need to solve this. For me, it's something that can wait a little bit. Now, to conclude this part of the video regarding the quality of the products, to me there clearly were some quality control issues. First of all, with these sleeves, I'm not sure if Optimal imported these from somewhere else and there wasn't proper quality control on what they imported, or if there was just a batch of these that came that were not, I don't know, defective somehow, because they are scratching the records in the end, or if there was something that had to do with quality control on the Optimal production line. I don't know, because I don't know how their production process is set up. What I do know is that clearly having so many cases online, like on the Steve Hoffman forums, there are 2 threads right now which are hyperactive. One is the original thread that was created when the reissue was announced. It has hundreds of pages already of people discussing, and many of those pages, especially kind of halfway through, have started to be referring to the issues with the box set. And then there was another thread open specifically for the issues, and that one already has over 4, not 3, actually like 4, almost 5 dozen pages with, of course, quite a few posts on each page about the issues. So it's clearly not a sort of a very isolated issue. Normally you would have in any production process, and especially something where you produce many elements for a box set like this, you have a lot of opportunities to for things to go wrong. And obviously in any production process you will have some products that are put out of the production line that come out defective or not up to par with the criteria of quality that the respective product should have. And in this case, having like 1 out of, 100 or 1,000 box sets having these issues, I think would have been acceptable, because that's the situation. Sometimes it happens. It's important that the producer and the seller react to that and make it right for the buyer. But it shouldn't be in great numbers. But at this time, it does seem like, the impression that I have, and also comparing with what happened in 2014, it does seem that like there were way more issues than would have been expected or actually acceptable for a premium product like this one. So clearly there were some misses somewhere. It's not clear exactly where. They might have to do with Optimal, with Universal, with Apple. It's not clear. But clearly somebody needs to react, and that somebody more often than not would be Universal Music, because they are the ones who sell the product. So what I did is, like what other people did, is write them a couple of emails telling them about the issues. I took some relevant photos that I shared with them as well. I've already recorded, and I will continue to record videos of the sound issues. If in case they are asking for it, I'm ready to share that as well. A lot of people did that as well, and I'm keeping an eye on the Steve Hoffman forums for that. A lot of people have done that, and some have started to receive answers from the UK store support, from the French one, from the German one, even I think from the US one. With US fans, by the way, it's an extra problem that a lot of them haven't received their box sets yet, and they were put off for a future date. So that was not cool either. But at least now the answers that are coming from some of these people on the support team for Universal Music from different countries seem to be towards fixing the issue for the buyers. And what they stated in some of the later emails is not the buyers having to send the full box set back, which would be a huge hassle. If they had done that, that would have, it would have been like a fake out, because most people would not send the full box set back for 2 of the records being defective because of the rare condition of these records, right? You cannot find them or buy them at a decent price anymore. So people would want to keep, 8 records that are in good condition, that they obviously would have to like claw at to get from the online market, and keep those defective records as well, and kind of eat the issue. But it's good that Universal has decided to do the right thing, or at least this is how it seems, and actually compensate somehow the buyers. And what they did is, or what they said they will do, is replace or look at producing and replacing the defective records, this is what they should do. And I remember this was happening back in, or I read about it happening back in 2006, when the one of the box sets, the CD box sets of the Capitol albums was out, the second one, which came out with a couple of the CDs having the wrong mixes on them, wrong mono mixes. They were actually fold downs of the stereo mixes by mistake. So what they did then, they allowed people to send those and get replacements for those discs. This is what they should do in this case as well. I think giving part of the money back to users, to buyers, I don't think it's that helpful, depending on how money they give back, but they probably will not give like half of the cost of the box set, like $250 or something. And that's how much it costs nowadays to buy a white album, a mono white album from 2014. From 2025 it's difficult because I think nobody is breaking apart the box set to sell it. So, but 2014, or like even a Japanese one from the 80s or UK one from the 80s that is in near mint condition, so it's closer to what a new one would have to be, you are forking out at least $200 on that record. So, you know, giving people $200, $250, it doesn't make sense to them because they have to be half the cost of the box set, and the buyers who have issues with the white album, for instance, would barely be able to buy the white album as a replacement. So the better idea is for them to produce new batches of these records, and this time have proper quality control for them, change these inner sleeves, and you know, ship them to the people who need replacements. That would be the best approach. So yeah, that about concludes the issues with the box set that I had. I hope you guys, you know, the ones who are watching the channel, watching these videos, I hope you had less of the issues, the ones that bought the box set actually. Let me know in the comments. I already saw some, and we already kind of you know, had some conversations with people at the last video, because some of you already mentioned this. It is disappointing, I have to say. This is a premium product which costs a pretty penny. It is rare, so it's not being produced too much. It wasn't produced since 2014. The records weren't individually released since then. So, you know, and by the way that this sold out in pre-order, like for the UK store where I made my order, and then I saw for the other stores as well, at least in Europe, in a few days they were all sold out during pre-orders, and haven't put any extra stock since then. Which means that I think they expected this to sell, but I don't think they expected it to sell this well, this fast. It's clear that people were waiting for it for a long time, and it's clear that actually collectors who wanted this are more than maybe Apple or Universal thought they are, or even we, the fans, collectors, thought we are. Obviously, some of those are scalpers, because the original box set goes up to $2,000, even beyond $2,000 euros on Discogs, and has been for years. The individual records, like I said, if you want to buy them there, where you can still find them, they will be significantly expensive. Some of them are around €100. Those are the cheap ones. The white albums, 200, hands down if you want a near mint copy. Mono masters the same way. So in that condition, it's clear that a lot of the buyers, or at least some of the buyers, were scalpers basically, or just people. Well, I mean, if you want to buy something like this, not to own it, but to immediately resell it at a markup, even if you are otherwise a regular record salesman, you are a scalper. If you are doing that specifically for that purpose, to buy this with 500 and sell it with 700 or 800 euro or more, you are a scalper. So a lot of the people who bought these probably were scalpers, but still, you know, this was sold out in a few days, so that's a good sign. I think it should be a good sign for Apple and for Universal that interest for this medium, for original analog recordings being put in an analog way on records, is still high. Like, the interest for this is still high. So maybe we can hope for more in the future. And actually, to close this portion, I have to say one more thing. Like, one thing that I was worried about as well, aside from not being able to get a replacement for the white album, which I haven't yet, but maybe I will, is that I thought with all of these problems, and with Universal and Apple now having to scramble to fix this and potentially, you know, lose some money, because they will lose from their potential profits if they have to reproduce these records again and give them for free to people, they will actually lose some money. So I was kind of worried that if this would happen, they would be deterred in the future from producing this kind of product. And our chances at getting this reissued again, or the records individually, or why not an analog stereo collection of the Beatles, are decreasing drastically, and might affect also releases that they otherwise had planned, like certain box sets new mixes, new stereo mixes and such. I'm hoping that that will not be the case, that actually they will see this as an opportunity, that fandom is still there, that they have clients, potential clients out there willing to buy premium or very good quality products, not only from the production side of view, but also from the sound and the actual music side of view, point of view, and that actually the fandom is growing and the interest in vinyl is growing, even beyond the ones which were already sort of established fans or collectors and such. Now let's get to the second part of the video. I made some comparisons between the records from this new box set and some of the ones from 2014, plus a couple of other mono issues, which I will show you in a couple of seconds. The only thing I want to mention is that I didn't compare all of the records because I didn't have copies from 2014 of all of the records. In fact, with the White Album especially, I had only one copy in mono of the White Album, which was a Japanese version. I forget now if it was 82 or 86, but they're kind of the same. Which I sold because I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this box set. I'll sell some of the mono copies that I have. I'll only keep the ones where I want to have like 2 copies because I love the album so much that I just want to have like an alternative if something happens to one of them. And so I kept like Rubber Soul and a couple of others, and others I put out for sale. I didn't sell all of them yet, but the White Album was one of the ones was sold first, and now I'm stuck with a White Album which is full of crackles and pops. So yeah, again, hopefully I'll get that replacement, but for some of them I still had the Japanese versions or the 2014 versions, so I made a comparison, an audio comparison this week. I also used the CDs in this comparison, and I will explain why. It's because anyway, some of these CDs I had used before in the videos that I made for the respective albums, and where I had already a copy on vinyl in mono and one of the CD, when I did those comparisons for some of the Beatles albums episodes that I put here on the channel, in those comparisons I noticed that the CD sounds exactly the same as the record. I rarely found any but very, very slight differences, so almost nothing. The only significant difference, which I'll mention again today, is the volume, right? Because on the CD, the volume, at least how I perceive it with my system, is bigger, is higher. But otherwise, you know, they seem to be exactly the same. So I use the CDs again. Why? Because to compare to vinyl records properly, I cannot do it side by side. I don't have the possibility of listening these 2 records on 2 separate turntables at the same time. My system doesn't permit that. I also didn't hook up my system to computers. That would have been probably an alternative, to hook it up to a computer and record the sound of coming off 2 records on there, and then compare there, and also compare the wavelength, the frequencies and all of that. But there are people doing that online, so it's not something that I would fancy doing necessarily. I really want to count on how my ear perceives the sound. And for me, I perceived very little difference. I will tell you specifically for each record, but generally speaking, they seem to be quite identical. Let's start with the Beatles for now. On my right side, I have the 2014 copy, and this is the 2025 copy. In terms of how they look, I will take them also out of their sleeves, but you can already see, if you look at the coloring of the cover, the front cover, that the 2014 one to me seems more sort of black and white sort of tint, but this one seems to have a bluish tint to it. I don't know if you can actually notice it. I hope you can, but this is how it seems to me. Otherwise, they look quite the same. And if you look at the back looks exactly the same, right? It was reported, and I kind of noticed that the 2025 ones overall, where they have the white areas, they seem a little bit more towards a yellow. It's not yellow already, but it's kind of a little bit of an eggshell white rather than like a pure white. But otherwise, they look the same. Even in printing and all of the details on the records themselves, on the pictures, on the bottom here, on the flip backs, everything seems to be identical. And the records inside are also identical. They are identical even up to the matrices. Let's just take with the Beatles out. I'm not going to take all of them, but you'll see they look identical. So here they are. It's pretty difficult to hold these at the same time. Hope you can see them. They are identical. So in terms of the sound, what I did was I put one record on my turntable, I put the CD, the corresponding CD in the CD player, and I was switching back and forth between the turntable and the CD outputs, kind of on the same songs, at the same volume, same, bass, treble settings and everything else, and try to perceive whether there are significant differences, and there are not. Again, the volume is the biggest thing that is clear, right? The CDs have about, I guess, 15%, if I were to estimate, higher volume than the vinyl records, or at least this is how I perceive it on my system. Maybe it's a thing with my turntable and the fact that it's going through the phono preamp of the amplifier. Who knows? But still, that's the only thing that I noticed. When I already got my sort of bearings on, and I was switching back and forth. I already had learned to switch when I was switching from the CD to turntable to move the volume knob again about 10-15% up and then down. And the way that I perceived the sound was a perfect continuation of that respective songs which I was listening to between the two versions. So to me that seems like they are identical. And then what I did is, because I did this first with the 2014 one and the 2009 CD, and then did it with the CD and the 2025, I perceived no difference between these records. So to me they sounded exactly the same. Now, aside from with the Beatles, another one that I did this comparison with was Help. This is the 2014 version. Here, this one was bought clearly from somebody who had it separately because it has the hype sticker on. So it's not part of the box necessarily, but it was the same release back in 2014. And then this is the 2025 version, which again is identical. I mean, I'm trying to look at it to see if there's any discernible difference. But really, at least for me, there is not. Again, use the CD. And by the way, I think I'll have a video in the future of comparing the vinyl boxes with the CD boxes, just to look at them, because I really love these miniature sleeves and how they look, and comparing them to the real thing, I think would be quite fun. Another one that was exactly the same, and I'll jump to it. Actually, they were all kind of the same, but it's just about the versions from 2014 versus these ones, is Rubber Soul. With Rubber Soul, actually, yes, I used the CD again as a sort of a base, right? And aside from that, I used the 2014 copy that I have, which is this one. Again, it was sold separately, clearly because it has the hype sticker. This is the 2025 copy. Side by side again. To me, they look identical, really. I mean, up to the color of the font for the Rubber Soul text, they seem identical. The only thing is that the 2025 one now, to me, seems a little bit darker. Actually, it seems like the cover for the 2014 one is a little bit lighter, but just because I think it's passage of time and the way it was kept before I bought it. Otherwise, it's okay. The record is perfect inside. But I also had this Japanese version of Rubber Soul. With these, I mean, there isn't much difference in terms of how I feel the mix. The mix is clearly the original one, the correct one. The quality of the pressing is good. I really couldn't find any discernible differences. But for this one, I will do another test just to also check a little bit the bass. Because the one thing that I know about Japanese records is that the bass is a little bit shy, the low end is a little bit shy. Of course, with my system, I can very easily, correct that, if you will, with a very small turn of the knob. But still, that might be one thing. But otherwise, yeah, it seems almost identical, this one as well. And because I talked about Japanese records, with A Hard Day's Night, I did the comparison between the 2025 issue and the 1980s issue from Japan. Now this one, of course, has a little bit more differences than the 2025 with the cover as well. Like, of course, no flip backs, yeah, but also in the front you can see it's kind of different coloring, different nuances of the colors that we have here, right? And again, I used the CD as a point of reference. This one really sounded, again, almost identical. So there are people who say that the Japanese records don't sound, sound good, but don't sound as good as the UK ones. I don't know. Just to my ears, with my system, I could not perceive that. But again, I maybe don't have the best ears for this. Anyway, to me, they sounded exactly the same. And to a certain extent, the Japanese one often sounds cleaner as a record than the 2025 one. It's incredible. I was saying about this one before, I think on the channel, the Hard Day's Night. This is one of the first mono ones that I got from Japan, and it was incredible. It was kept so well and sounds so good. And the next one, actually the last one in the comparison that I wanted to talk about, is Revolver. Now this one, I didn't have the 2014 issue and I didn't have any Japanese issue because I had bought the deluxe box set, vinyl box set, I bought a year ago, and that one contains this copy, AAA copy of the mono version of the album. And so I had a mono version, but was that the one in the box set? Now it was said that they were using the exact same, masters as they did for the 2014, so there should be no issue. There are people who say that this actually sounds even slightly better than the 2014 one. I didn't notice that, at least comparing these two, like the 2025 and the 2022, didn't really notice any significant differences. They seem to sound the same. And again, I used the CD as a sort of a in-between to kind of validate that, and to me they all sounded the same. Now, of course, the 2022 had a problem, if you can call it a problem, that the cover that they produced for this one, and this one was produced, by the way, the box set was produced in the Czech Republic versus Germany, so it's not produced by Optimal, it was produced by GZ. Already there were some quality concerns then when this came out. I remember people were talking about some of the things, but this one, the box set for me was more or less good. There were a couple of issues that I discovered as of late. So one of them was in the stereo album, which I took out a few weeks ago. This part of the cover has come unglued. And to be honest, I listened to that record maybe 2 times, 3 times since I bought the box set. I generally take good care of how I, manipulate these records. So I don't understand how that could have happened. It's not kept in heat or humidity or whatever. I don't know. The only explanation can be it was not properly glued on. And I'm worried about this mono one as well, because right now it looked good, but who knows. The other thing was, and it again goes back to how the cover was made, is that, okay, the original covers that they made in 2014 and they replicated now in 2025 have the flip backs, right? And if done well, these are keeping the record in a good shape, and they're kind of nice to look at, right? And they're reproducing the original record in the end. But the 2022 version, which was put in the box set, had just a regular cover. This is identical to the stereo one, actually. I don't have it on me now, but it's identical, aside from the mono stereo mentioned here, and the fact that this one mentions also available in stereo up here. But yeah, so they made it with the cover, like a regular cover, not a huge issue. In the end, the record was important, and for me, the record was okay. And the last thing that I wanted to mention for this one is quite apparent, although we are not comparing again 2025 to 2014, but rather 2025 to 2022. It's obvious that the color, sort of the tint of the front cover is different. So here we have a whiter color, and here again more of an eggshell color to the cover. So that concludes the comparisons. Again, in terms of sound, I compared all of these, I would say thoroughly. Couldn't find big differences. I didn't compare them end to end. I have to mention that. I didn't listen to full album side by side. I didn't really have the full time, but I chose a few songs of different sort of notes, if you will, like lower volume songs, rockier songs, especially when it comes to Revolver and such, like weirder songs like Tomorrow Never Knows and a couple of others. They all, again, to me they sounded identical. which is good news. Now, I do plan on doing more of these in the future. I still have pending an episode from the Beatles series, album series on White Album, where I compare the versions that I have, so there will be another comparison. Unfortunately, now for the mono version on vinyl, I will have to wait a little bit because I do want to have a clean copy if possible. I was rethinking my choice to sell the Japanese records that I have, the mono ones. I already sold a couple of them, like I said. One of them was White Album. I'm not unhappy that I sold it. The person who I sold it to seemed very happy with the record, and to be honest, seeing them appreciate the record at its true value is actually endearing, and it makes me feel no regret. I have a regret that I don't have a clean copy of the White Album, but I will be able to fix that sometime in the future. But I'm not happy that I sold it to that specific person, and I was keeping some of the ones that I put out for sale as well to sell to the same person. Now I'm reconsidering at least the Japanese ones. I kind of would like to keep them, but I will see. It depends on the funds available. Now, before we close, the last piece I wanted to talk a little bit about today is this mono copy from Japan of Yellow Submarine. So this is one that I was definitely going to keep. I wasn't going to sell it. It's because Yellow Submarine is not included as a mono album, and this box set was not included in 2014, and it does make sense. This is actually not a true mono record. It's actually a fold down of the stereo, but it's still like an interesting piece to have in the collection, a mono version of Yellow Submarine. And again, as a Japanese record, it sounds quite nice as well. I wanted to show this to you. This is kind of sort of the missing link. Officially, it did came out in mono, right? It came out in mono. There was a version of it in the UK as well, if I'm not mistaken. But again, being a fold down, not true mono, for purists, doesn't really make sense to include in the box set, I guess. For me, it's an interesting piece to have, and it kind of, is one of the elements of the Japanese collection. That was about it for today. Thank you for joining us. Please let us know in the comments whether you've received your box set, especially those of you who had delays on it or you're still waiting for it. Those who have received it, again, I'm curious to see what were your findings. I find now that there are a lot of people who have issues, but I'm curious to see if that's just maybe my perception of it. How do you plan to deal with the issues that you found, if any? Do you plan to change, or have you changed the inner sleeves or the outer sleeves of the records in your box set? Have you compared them to other versions that you might have, whether they are 2014, 80s from the UK, earlier from the UK or other countries, Japan and so on? Again, I'm super curious to see how you perceive the differences between these records to be. Otherwise, please do like, share, subscribe, hype, all of those things, YouTube stuff. There's increasingly more YouTube stuff for people to do, apparently, when they watch a video. If you feel like it, please do engage with those. Thank you again very much for joining us, and I hope I'll see you next time.